Sparks that I don't remember. Hold and let it shine. Fix and start to fade away. Fix and start to fade away. Fix and start to fade away.
Hello, dear friends of Kabala International. We are once again with our dear friend Mario.
Shalom, Nacho. How are you?
Shalom, excellent. Very happy to be here with you again. Today we are going to talk about speed, anxiety, immediacy. Aspects that are very characteristic of the time we are living in, and at the moment of preparing the topic, I felt compelled to write 3 sentences that can be motivational to continue with the analysis. One of them is the constant desire for instant gratification. It is something that happens nowadays. My reflection also points to the impossibility of going deeper. And the last one I noted, which seems to be a quite central aspect of this situation, is the difficulty of appreciating the existential process.
Indeed. Well, here a range of analysis and possibilities really opens up, and there is, first of all, from the perspective of Kabbalah, a contradiction within ourselves. For this situation to occur, the need for silence, the need to halt, and at the same time, the issue of immediacy. From the perspective of Kabbalah, within oneself there is, I would say, a confrontation taking place. And a confrontation because the soul desires to develop its potential desire infinitely. We could say that the soul desires everything, and in the space-time of the individual is limited. If you decide to go to the movies, you cannot go to the theater. Therefore, in that limited space and time, there is a kind of suffering because it is not possible to realize everything that the soul desires. Or there has to be a great organization so that in this organization the issue of immediacy can be balanced. So let's go point by point. First of all, we have a primary issue. We enjoy within this culture, we enjoy and suffer at the same time. The question of having immediate results. But at the same time, we forget that life is a path and it is a process. The soul is aware that this is a process, but also the mind in some way requires tangible results in reality. So, here comes the question, how to get tangible results? But that they are part of the process? The process itself in some way leads to tangible results. And here I want to delve into a slightly deeper level of secret. Why? Because the soul process does not have tangible results on the material level on the outside. It has tangible results on the inside, because what we are talking about is a change of consciousness, of inner perception. So, where does the mind get confused? In that if it doesn't achieve a result externally, it's as if it's not undergoing its learning internally. Tangible results for Kabbalah are not only the purchase of a house, which is a tangible result, it's an elevation of the internal learnings that I have within me. We're talking about tangible results internally, only registrable by the soul and also by the mind. The mind also has to register them. What you cannot do is to be obsessed with this type of results and not enjoy the process. Therefore, how to enjoy the process? Because we can be in a permanent flow of energy, enjoying the process, but absolutely forgetting about the results. This is also unnatural, because the mind requires tangible results to keep moving forward, as stabilization systems at the emotional level. We need some kind of results. I reiterate again, results not in the terms of outer material results, but rather results of inner consciousness change. Of course, Experimentally, how are those changes in inner consciousness measured? This is one of the problems, I would say, of spiritual science. A material science, like engineering, if you build a bridge that is wrong, it collapses. So you have formulas so that the external material result can be seen in a tangible way. In the spiritual sciences, in the Kabbalah, the inner results, your changes in the level of perception, are perceived by you. They cannot be perceived by another. Eventually the other may perceive them over time, but it has no relation to the desire for the other to perceive them. The most important thing is that one can perceive them. So we find ourselves here in a life of depth, a deep life, a life of consciousness, as opposed to a superficial life, a life of inertia, of, I would say, conquest of nature. And here, two situations come into contradiction. The West, like conquering nature, conquering space, and the Jewish tradition conquering time. That is to say, undoubtedly the only thing we have is time, and we cannot conquer space and lose time. So here we have a problem, because the Greek, the Western, was always the control of space. That is to say, idolatry is to idolize a space. In a certain way, the great cathedrals and the great mosques all wanted to show strength in space. Within the Jewish tradition, that spatial force ended with the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. There is no longer conquest of space. There is conquest of time, because at the level of consciousness, the only thing we have is time. So, to conquer materials in space and lose time is a contradiction. We have to have instruments in space that allow me to save time. Now this time, what am I going to invest it in? What am I going to invest my time in? Because the investment of time will relate to my identity, that is, the construction of my identity, is directly related to where I am and how I am organizing my time. So, if someone wants to know who they are, they should look at their schedule to see how they have their time distributed, because the distribution of time is what marks the construction of identity. So, we already have a very important topic here. Time must be distributed in the best way, because identity is going to be associated to that good distribution of time. First question. And the second question, is that time, are we going to use it to go deeper or to lose it? In the surface world, because I can spend 4 hours at the mall walking around when it no longer makes any sense to keep walking around, or I can be reading a good book in peace and quiet. The soul asks for background elements. The soul asks for interiority. And the body asks for exteriority. Because the body also likes the sensitive, it likes to go out, it likes to go to the mall. That is to say, one must regulate the time between the surface and the depths. The surface should not be annulled by the depths, nor the depths by the surface. The West has annulled the depths for the surface. And how did it annul it? Well, in the past, the Inquisition and power annulled it through censorship. They censored works that gave depth. Today there is an Inquisition, we could say totally underground, which is the one that has succeeded in giving speed to the system. So today, there's no need for them to censor the reading of a book, because today you don't have time to read the book. Your time has been taken away by social speed. So, what censorship did in the Middle Ages, today you don't need censorship. Because in some way, the power knows that due to the speed of events, by sending the person into a superficial life, they lose the capacity for depth. The person has such a level of distraction in the superficial sphere that he absolutely loses his capacity for depth. So censors today make no sense. There is like a covert censorship within the system.
It's wonderful because you were talking about energy flows, you were talking about engineering, you were talking about time. And while I was preparing the talk we were going to have today, I wrote something that has to do with, obviously, today's topic, which is speed and immediacy. So in the reflection I wrote, immediacy and speed today are nothing more than slowness.
That's right. I would say even more radical. Speed is paralysis. I am sorry to be more radical. In general, I am characterized by being more radical.
You like to bet harder.
I like to go out of bounds, but I would tell you, speed is a key element of paralysis. We are paralyzed by speed, when in reality, when we slow down, we start to have speed. That is, when we start to go deeper,
Of course.
that's when we really start to see things beyond our limits. Look, there is a very interesting fact. A fact that few people know. When the Nazis invaded Poland and created the Warsaw Ghetto, one of the first orders was to kill and shoot the 300 intellectuals. First of all, because they had to remove those who were thinking, and then to dominate the rest. Look at the madness of this. Madness, because it gives us a reflection to this madness. And it is. The one who is at a table thinking, the one who is on a rock meditating, for the system is very dangerous. Because in reality, the new ideas, the revelations, come from here. When someone is in a deep process, many times people say to me, "What did Jesus do between the age of 12 and 30? Surely he meditated and studied." Because then his preaching was a year and a half, and in a year and a half, he achieved such a brutal preaching, yes, because he was 18 years old,
Studying?
that they validated a level of depth for him. What is happening today, unfortunately? We are losing the level of depth. Therefore, we are losing our reflection. And therefore, by losing our reflection, we are paralyzed.
Allow me to justify with a practical example I had written related to the subject of engineering. The
Very
inherent
good.
superficiality of the immediate is equivalent to a flow of information circulating through a thin pipe. On the other hand, the deeper processes, which are apparently slower, travel through pipes whose information flows are infinitely greater.
When you go deeper, you advance much more than in the speed of the supposed advance, because progress is superficial, merely administrative. Progress is administrative, it's of a material movement, but material movement doesn't respond to the demands of depth, because the soul requires depth. If civilization has progressed, it hasn't progressed due to speed. Here I would say two models are at play. The technical model of the Roman Empire, which advanced in the conquest of nature, and the model of interiorization of Judaism in Judea, which advanced inward. And here, undoubtedly, there is an oscillation, because outwardly we also have to advance. But technology has to serve us as an instrument of service of that depth. When we fill ourselves with instruments and lose the depth, that is when we have a problem. That's when we have a problem. An existential problem, a problem of the soul. The soul is going to ask for an account. It will ask for an account of its existential emptiness, of its suffering. Does it ask for an account of this attitude that totally denies depth?
Excellent, Mario. Thank you very much.
Likewise.